It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and welcome to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. This is Newslink, but first, our headline stories. Members of Parliament belonging to Côte d'Ivoire's oldest party, PDCI, proposed a roadmap for a peaceful and transparent 2025 presidential election. In Mali, welcomed the creation of a military and weapons manufacturing complex. In Nigeria, telecommunication subscribers expressed disapproval of a 50% increase in the cost of calls and data. And looking at regional economy, the World Bank predicts a 4% growth for Africa, with Senegal ranking first with a 9.7% jump. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners within and beyond the sub-region. Newslink begins in Côte d'Ivoire as the PDCI RDA parliamentary group has drawn up an action plan for the October 2025 presidential election. The deputies from the country's oldest party have put forward several proposals for a peaceful, transparent and fair election. They also call on the government to engage in political dialogue and open up a new electoral roll. Imoradad has more in this report by our Abidjan correspondent Albenadi.
Speaking to the press, members of the PDCI RDA parliamentary group presented an action plan for a transparent and peaceful election next October. They called for political dialogue to be held before the presidential election. Simon Doe is an MP and member of the PDCI RDA parliamentary caucus.
In addition to all the steps taken by the president of our party, in liaison with the opposition parties, we would like to make a further appeal to the president of the republic, the head of state who has the primary responsibility for building and preserving peace in our country, to urgently take the necessary steps to engage in the fraternal political dialogue that every one of our compatriots is calling for.
As for Blessy Christome, he calls on the Independent Electoral Commission to initiate a new phase of the revision of the electoral roll in February.
The Council is obliged to organize a revision of the electoral list. Otherwise, it is suppressed by discrimination for which it can be condemned. It is discrimination that the letter of variance registered in February 2017 and others cannot. The Constitution says that Ivorians are all equal in rights.
The PDCI RDA parliamentary group is also calling for a rebalancing of the Ivorian Electoral Commission, in particular the participation of political parties with elected members in parliament or local authorities in the Central Commission and local CEIs. In a statement issued on Tuesday, PDCI President and Financier Tijan Cham called on Ivorians to vote in large numbers for change. According to him, it is the only way to ensure the development of Côte d'Ivoire.
WADR's Alben Adej report, voiced by Imoradad, and in Mali, reactions have continued to trail the transitional president's announcement of the creation of a military manufacturing plant. General Assimi Goïta revealed this on the eve of the 64th anniversary of the Malian Armed Forces. Mali's soon-to-be commissioned industrial complex have units for the assembling of individual and collective weapons, tactical vehicles, ammunition, and explosives for civilian use. But beyond the military's vision are the economic benefits of such a project. Sadiq Abba, a journalist and security analyst, explains.
When you take the countries of the former G5 Sahel, you can have an accurate snapshot. Between 2010 and 2020, military spending increased by 125%. A country like Mali devotes around 27% of its tax revenues to military and security spending. In other words, all this money is going abroad. Since Mali is not currently producing, it enriches others. So, from an economic point of view, if Mali were to succeed in having this military industry, it would first of all enable it to save money. Secondly, Mali itself is now part of the confederation with Burkina Faso and Niger. We can imagine that these two countries will also be able to source their supplies from Mali, which will save them money. Alongside the savings that the state will make, there is also the creation of jobs. First of all, direct jobs, then indirect jobs, subcontracting. All this means that if the project is carried through to completion, there will be indeed an economic spin-offs. And economic spin-offs means big things. You know, in the Sahel today, any job creation can contribute to solving the problem, because we've long understood that youth unemployment, the fact that there are no jobs, contribute to aggravating the security threat. And from my point of view, all this can have an impact on the economies of the countries, on job creation and on the spread of knowledge.
Dans la création d'emplois et dans la diffusion de la richesse dans la zone.
Sadiq Abba is a Malian journalist and security analyst. Here in Senegal, the ad hoc committee charged with ruling on the lifting of parliamentary immunity for MP Mohamedou Farba Ngom completed its work on Tuesday. The case, which has given rise to controversy in recent days, will be brought to a close at the plenary session in the coming days. As you will recall, the Senegalese Minister of Justice had requested the National Assembly to lift the parliamentary immunity of the MP, a close associate of former President Macky Sall. The financial judicial pool alleged money laundering involving several personalities without providing more details. Farba Ngom was represented by Aissata Sall, president of the Taku Walu Senegal Parliamentary Group. Speaking at the end of the committee sitting, Sall said she knew nothing of the charges against her colleague. Here's an extract from her statement.
Farba Ngom a choisi, d'accord.
Farba Ngom decided, in agreement with myself and after consultation with other fellow MPs, that only his defender would appear before the committee. That's why I went alone. Now, the other point of my statement is to say what we, as Farba Ngom's defenders, did before the commission. When we arrived, I raised a preliminary question. What was the problem? The problem was that nobody had seen Farba Ngom's file. Since we've been talking about hypotheses, we've been talking about possibilities, we've been talking about maybe, but nobody here in Senegal, apart from a few judicial authorities, has seen the Farba Ngom file. Is he accused of assault and battery? Is he accused of traffic accident? We don't know. The only thing we know is what the prosecutor has written, but we don't know what's really in the file. I'm not saying that what the prosecutor wrote is wrong, but if what he wrote is true, what difficulty is there in giving us the facts? And I say to the commission, give me Farba Ngom's file so that we can study it and defend ourselves. How can we defend ourselves without a file? Is this a serious work by a commission we've set up?
Est-ce que ça, pour une commission qu'on a mis en place, mais est-ce que ça, c'est du travail sérieux?
Aissata Sall, president of the Taku Walu Senegal Parliamentary Group.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we're live on Facebook at WADR English Service and on YouTube. Let's take you to the Gambia, where the interregional ministerial meeting on anti-doping is underway in Banjul, the nation's capital. COP9, the conference brings together ministers, anti-doping advocates and experts to promote good sporting governance. WADR's Sankule Janko completes the story.
Themed sports governance based on values, ethics, and integrity. The Interregional African Ministerial Meeting on Anti-Doping in Sports aims to commit the member countries to the overall governance in sports. Here is the ECOWAS ambassador to the Gambia, Miata Lily French, highlighting the significance of the meeting.
The decisions we make and the partnerships we forge will not only shape the integrity of our sports institutions, but also the hopes and dreams of millions of young Africans who see sports as a pathway to a better future. ECOWAS stands ready to partner and contribute to the achieving of these shared goals.
For his part, the Vice President of the Gambia, Mohamed B.S. Jallo, reiterated the country's commitment to anti-doping.
I assure you of the Gambia's support and by extension, the commitment of the continent's political leadership. African countries and their partners must strengthen cooperation at both policy and operational levels to educate and protect our athletes more zealously.
The UNESCO-funded initiative has supported over 250 projects globally, and more than 70 of those are in Africa. The UN body remains a vital partner in strengthening governance frameworks, says Gabriela Ramos, Deputy Director General of UNESCO. Ramos is urging stronger collaboration by African countries to discourage doping.
First, I call on African decision makers to renew their engagement for change in sports values, ethics, and integrity. And at the national level, I encouraged African countries to adopt measures for improved coordination guided by clear frameworks and for strengthened governance rooted in the principles of the Convention.
COP9, the Interregional African Ministerial Meeting on Anti-Doping in Sports in Banjul, is therefore a commitment of regional governments and partners to promote ethical standards in sports. The strategies and actions agreed upon will lay the foundation for a robust sports governance. For Nusinkon West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankula Janka reporting from Banjul.
Away from the Gambia, Nigerians are voicing strong opposition to the recent approval of a 50% increase in telecommunications tariffs, which affects both calls and data usage. In this report, WADR's Usman Omar says the increase, which is set to raise call rates to 16 naira per minute and the cost of 1 gigabyte of data to 431 naira, has ignited considerable outrage among consumers and business groups alike. His report.
Industry leaders, including Adeolu Ogunbanjo, president of the National Association of Telecom Subscribers, and Ogunbayi Ganiyu, spokesperson for mobile money agents, in separate statements have condemned the Nigerian Communications Commission for sanctioning the tariff hike. They are expressing grave concerns regarding the socio-economic impact on low-income households and businesses, predicting significant ripple effects throughout the economy. Legal expert and public policy analyst Stanley Negbenebo has also weighed in on the issue, highlighting potential legal recourses available to consumers.
If you really want to compare quality over cost, I think the focus should be more of getting good quality. A little bit of adjustment here and there, slightly painful, but ultimately, for me, I would advise that the focus should be more quality control to ensure that people get value for the money they will spend. The Consumer Protection Agency is in place. I think that I've seen some news around some pressure groups within the telecom sectors representing consumers saying they will challenge the process. But I need to say that the laws around telecom services is a bit sui generis. They need to also pay attention to the fact that the Nigerian Communication Act expressly provides out disputes that to be resolved when it comes to telecommunication related issues. If they follow that process, they may be heard.
The mood of Nigerians on many social media platforms monitored suggests overwhelming displeasure with the new development. As tensions rise, the debate continues over the sustainability of such price hikes and their impact on the everyday lives of citizens. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Still in Nigeria, a new report has revealed that more than 2.5 million children are at risk of malnutrition in the volatile northeast region this year. Published by the UN Humanitarian Agency OCHA on Tuesday, the report stated that the children's vulnerability is due to security challenges, in particular the 16-year violent extremism that has ravaged the region. Francis Boniface has more in this report.
Following the disclosure, Tron Jensen, head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, UNOCHA in Nigeria, said urgent action is needed to avert the catastrophe. The top UN official was speaking in Abuja ahead of the launch on Thursday of the National Humanitarian Need and Response by the UN. Jensen said protracted violence in the region has forced a large portion of the civilian population to take refuge in displaced person camps, including in neighboring countries of Niger and Chad. Many of the displaced persons have been denied decent access to safe water and basic human needs. Tron Jensen explained that adequate funds are required to provide aid to children and affected population, which will focus on life-saving interventions and providing human needs such as water and sanitation. Despite the Nigerian government's effort to eradicate terrorism, the Boko Haram terrorist group and its affiliate ISWAP have continued to launch attacks targeting civilians and military personnel. Borno State, located in the northeast region, remains the most affected by the protracted insurgency that claimed thousands of lives and ruined livelihoods.
Francis Boniface reporting there. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal, and online on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Members of Parliament belonging to Côte d'Ivoire's oldest party, PDCI, propose a roadmap for a peaceful and transparent 2025 presidential election. Security experts in Mali welcome the creation of a military and weapons manufacturing complex. Telecommunication subscribers in Nigeria expressed disapproval of a 50% increase in the cost of calls and data. Still ahead in the news, the World Bank predicts a 4% growth for Africa, with Senegal ranking first with a 9.7% jump. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. In Ghana, security analyst Professor Kwesi Anin has raised concerns about illegal mining, popularly known as galamsey, which threatens the country's environmental and economic space. The recent deadly clash between the military and suspected illegal miners highlights the growing tensions and systemic issues in the mining sector. The confrontation took place at the decommissioned Anglo-Gold Ashanti mine in Obuasi, the Ashanti region of Ghana. Professor Kwesi Anin joins us on the guest segment for an insightful discussion. And to financial matters, the World Bank has released its report on Africa's economic prospects for 2025. The Bretton Woods institution forecast growth of just over 4% on the continent. In addition, the International Financial Institution indicates that per capita income will increase between 2025 and 2026. Etiatisu has the rest of the details.
In its latest January 2025 reports, the World Bank forecasts economic growth of 9.7% in Senegal, the highest rate on the African continent. Mauritania, with which Senegal shares the Grand Tortue and Mehim gas field, will also see a major leap forward. The country is recording economic growth of 7.8%. Both countries owe this progress to the exploration of the gas project located on their maritime border. In the UEMOA region, countries such as Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and Niger will see significant economic growth with rates of 6.4% for the first two and 8.5% for the latter. According to the document, two African giants, Nigeria and South Africa, will experience a slowdown. Overall, economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa is set to reach 5.3% between 2025 and 2026, thanks to the easing of inflation and financial conditions. Over the same period, countries such as Angola, Central African Republic, Equatorial Guinea, and Sudan are expected to record a fall in income. The Bretton Woods Institution points out that industrial exporters in sub-Saharan Africa will benefit from an improvement in private consumption and a rebound in services. However, the financial institution warns of several risk factors that could put the brakes on this recovery. These include the global economic slowdown, heightened geopolitical instability, and unfavorable trade tensions.
Eche Achesu filed that report.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
For today's press review, Nadir Tete is standing by with the trending stories and banner headlines from the dailies.
Greetings. We'll start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper front page. 17 more ministers nominated. Cabinet secretary and 9 presidential staffers also named. Other stories here. Cash flow woes cripple SHS food supply. That's according to the education minister designate. And attaining food security. Government to introduce 2 agric programs. That's according to the minister designate for agriculture. Now to the Ghanaian Times newspaper front page. Will generate massive revenue from property rates. Local government minister designate, and a 15-year-old in Kaswa murder given 12 months jail term. Other stories here. President Mahama nominates 17 more ministers and 10 appointees to president's office named. Now to the Daily Post newspaper front page. Grants the government breathing space to steer the affairs of this country. Dr. Ato Forson to the minority. Mahama appoints Anthony Kwesi Sapong as acting GRA Commissioner General, and NPP executives were selling SHS placement slots for 5,000 cedis. MP for Subing claims. And finally, President Mahama appoints Dr. Randy Abe as acting CEO of Cocoa Board. Now to the Crusading Guide newspaper front page. Cassius Manning versus Republic of Ghana. Ghanaian arbitrator knocked off over issues of conflict of interest. Other stories here. Bole residents rumble over absence of their MP in latest ministerial list, and IDEG and CFI condemns post-election violence, advocates sustainable peace. That'll be it for the Crusading Guide newspaper. Let's end with the Daily Statesman newspaper front page. Setekwe appointed presidential advisor on economy. Final story here. Coalition demands state of emergency on Galamsey. And that'll be it for the newspaper review segment. It's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Nadir Tete.
Politics,
Analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest on this edition of Newslink is Professor Kwesi Anin. Professor Anin speaks about some of the impending dangers of illegal mining on Ghana's economy, water bodies, and biodiversity. His remarks come on the heels of the recent deadly clash between the military and suspected illegal miners, highlighting the growing tensions and systemic issues in the mining sector.
More often than not, when you talk to people and you say something like, oh, this might escalate, then they think you are a pessimist. When you have about 1 million illegal artisanal small-scale miners and their dependents amount to another 1.52 million, creating a whole supply chain to ensure that this industry goes on, heavily armed, supported by all kinds of powerful people in this country, illicit financial flows involved, in which probably Ghana gets only about 1.5 tons out of the 8 tons mined, then you begin to see the extent of the interest involved. And because the state of Ghana has also failed over time to put its foot down, that look, this is an illegality, we won't tolerate it, and we will not allow the state to be threatened. It's colluded, incentivized illegal miners to the extent that they now think it is right to challenge the state when the state says no.
What are your expectations from the directive given by the president for swift investigations into the incident?
And here I think I will commend the president for the speed and decisiveness with which he has acted by setting up this or asking for an investigation, and also that those found culpable from all sides would be punished to serve as a deterrent. So I think the Jubilee House recognizes the importance of what has happened, its potential to spread and to get worse, and therefore the need to clamp down, or at least to get to the bottom of this. Now, we know that the activities of illegal miners has become a problem, actually an existential problem. Economic, threatening the gold mines, environmental, our rivers, air pollution, deformed babies, health issues.
The new administration has not moved into action yet when it comes to fighting the illegal mining menace. Could this be a catalyst for the government to act?
So this is a big thing. How we deal with it to ensure that it doesn't escalate but there's a lot of tension out there. It's key. The exponential bar of discussions prior to December 7th has tapered off almost to zero from December 8th until today that we are talking about this. So that 6 weeks gap has emboldened Galamsey's. And that is why I'm arguing that the way we deal with this will be key to other events that will happen. Finally, we know Galamsey, and particularly the activities of the illicit miners or illegal miners, is a problem. But we don't know what tips them over to arm themselves and to confront statutory security services, knowing that they will be met with lethal force.
Professor Kwesi Annan is a security expert. Up next is sports news with Sankule Janko.
Rafinha scored deep into stoppage time as Barcelona secured a stunning 5-4 comeback victory over Benfica in one of the most chaotic Champions League matches of all time. The Brazilian was played through in the 6th minute of added time, while Benfica players were protesting for a last gasp penalty at the other end. Rafinha fired beyond Antonelli trooping to stun the host and provoke wild celebrations as Hansi Flick's side secured their place in the last 16. Benfica saw their furious appeal for a penalty dismissed by VAR with a full-time whistle immediately sounding upon the restart to conclude the dramatic match. The result keeps Barcelona second in Champions League table, 3 points behind leaders Liverpool, but assured of a place in the last 16. Benfica are 18th in the table, but are well placed to secure a spot in the playoffs. Elsewhere, Liverpool made it 7 wins from 7 and into the knockout stages of the UEFA Champions League. The Anfield side's latest victory came against French side Lille, following a 2-1 win against the French outfit on Tuesday night. Goals from Egypt international Mo Salah and Harvey Elliott were enough to secure another win for the Reds. Lille played the last half an hour with 10 men after Asimandi was sent off. The victory means Liverpool secured a place in the last 16 of the UEFA Champions League. And Super Eagles forward Ademola Lookman got a goal and assist for Atalanta in their 5-0 bashing of Stuan Grass at the Swiss Stadium. Soccer.net reports. Nigeria forward Lookman scored in the 90th minute, rising to convert an inch-perfect cross from the Caladatra to make it 4-0 according to media reports. The African player of the year Lookman turned provider 5 minutes later, setting up Marco Brasciani for Atlanta's 5th goal of the night. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Sheikh Njai for technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship gender program 50/50, to be followed at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. With the news in French and for Chez, by Sani Momunisebo. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New EMEA.